Hi there, and welcome to episode 4 of the School Management Plus Talking Recruitment series with me, Kai Vacher, and Mark Steed. In this, our 4th episode, we thought we'd pause a little bit and just reflect on some of the feedback, suggestions, and thoughts that you've been offering to us in the various LinkedIn posts, which has been fantastic. We've really enjoyed seeing that engagement. So we've got a few questions, which we're going to explore in the next 10 to 12 minutes. And the first question is this. I'm a prospective candidate applying for a UK or an international school. Let's say I've got a third-class degree, and I'm really worried about how that's going to come across to a prospective employer. Mark, how worried should I be?
I think the honest answer for me is it depends what you're teaching. I mean, some of the best maths teachers I've ever come across have got thirds because they've struggled with maths and they're really good at explaining it. Some of the people with firsts have, it's just been a bit obvious for them and they've never been great at explaining it. So I think there's that. But if you're teaching history and you've never learned how to write an A-star essay, I think that's a bit more of a problem. So I would want to see evidence that you could teach, the highest level, whether that's maths or history.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. It's an indicator. It can be an indicator. And we also have to be very careful. One of the most intelligent people that I've ever worked with in education has written academic journals, is globally renowned and respected, incredibly articulate and knowledgeable as an educator. And I was really surprised when they told me that they had a third-class degree. So I think we have to be careful. But like you say, there are circumstances where it might be an indicator of effectiveness. Okay, let's move on to the second question. Character or competence? What's more important when making a recruitment decision?
Well, this is the Elon Musk question, isn't it? I mean, he thinks character all the way and then teach the rest. But I think both are really important, obviously. I mean, we're in the people industry. We deal with young people. I think character becomes really important dealing with young people. You've got to have the right temperament to do it. Competence, we don't have a lot of time to do training within education. So yeah, I think it's really important to have a bit of both.
Yeah. Character, I mean, to an extent, I think I might agree with Elon that it's maybe easier to teach and train competence than it is to teach and train character. But, please, by all means, if you're out there, you can join in this discussion in the comments below, see what your thoughts are too. And then the third question around selection criteria. What about experience, Mark? How important is experience when you're going for a role?
I think it's quite important. I mean, I think I always look for the schools people have worked in. Have they worked in a top school? Do they know what really good looks like? It's certainly, are they going to bring something from that school to this one? I think it's quite important. I think in terms of experience for senior leaders, I'm looking for mastery at every level. I think that's really important. Were they a good teacher? Were they a good head of department? Were they a good pastoral leader? In terms of head of year or whatever. And then are they therefore ready to go into senior leadership or whatever? So I think experience is really quite important.
Okay, as a follow-up question, as we often do in interviews, I'm not working in a top school. How do I gain that experience of being in a top school if I'm not working in one?
I think it's a case of getting around and seeing them, building a network of people who are in those schools, being part of the conversation about debates and best practice, and then trying to put that into practice in your corner of your school. People do some amazing stuff in as the whole school might be relatively weak, but your area can be a real pocket of strength.
Okay. In conversations I've had with head teachers, and it's also come up as a question in the feedback comments, we have teachers who maybe go from one school to another, maybe after a year or maybe every 2 years. Some people refer to these colleagues as education tourists. That might be because it's seen as disparaging. What's your view on the teacher who seems to be changing job every 1 or 2 years? When you see that application, what's going through your mind as a recruiter?
Well, I think as a recruiter, you really want 2, 3 years minimum internationally or even UK. But I quite like, I mean, I totally understand that people want to use education as a way to travel. I think where I would probably draw the line would be when, someone who's had a career sort of bouncing around the world, working in interesting places and different schools, then wants to step into middle or senior leadership. And I think then I would struggle, because I think you have to put down roots a bit. You have to do some yards. You have to live with the consequences of the teaching that you've done in order to demonstrate that you're a good middle leader. It's difficult to demonstrate mastery if you're moving around all the time.
I think another factor we sometimes think about is, we spend a lot of time recruiting, onboarding, inducting teachers into our school. Do we really want to invest all that time and energy in someone who might only be with us for a year? So I think it's definitely something worth thinking about. But it also seems to be very much part of certainly the international sector. Is there are many very, very good teachers who, like you say, are moving around to explore the world. And I guess, conveying how that experience is helping them develop as a professional, maybe that's part of the skill when you're then presenting an interview. Thinking about interview preparation, as a prospective applicant who might be listening out there, what, from a recruiter's perspective, does effective interview preparation look like, feel like? What should ideally prospective candidates be doing, in your opinion, Mark?
Well, I think it's about doing a lot of research, isn't it? It's for that, I think the best thing you can do is talk to somebody in the school who's working in the school. Have make sure you get a call with them, find out what it's like. And certainly when I was running Kellogg, we facilitated that and gave opportunities for people to talk to someone who was at a similar stage in their career, was sort of, to have a conversation about what it's like to live in Hong Kong or to live in Dubai or whatever. And I think this is really an important part of it. And I think it's a two-way process now, an interview. And you've got to be comfortable coming to work abroad or coming to work in a new part of Britain. And the best way to find that out is by actually doing your homework and speaking to some people in that place.
Interesting. I mean, one of the bits of feedback we've had here, and I'll just read some of this out. This educator who's in the international sector and has actually been in and out of the UK and international sector, been sort of to and forth quite a bit. This colleague is suggesting that we are already ending up with a two-tier system, certainly in the international world, where there are those schools that are quality-driven and reward the staff well, and then there are those staff that are profit-driven and are leading a push to the bottom in terms of pay and benefits, with quality being damned. So if we call the first group quality-driven, rewarding staff Group A, and the second Group B, what advice would you give, Mark, to someone who's maybe looking into getting to the international sector for the first time? How do they know what sort of school they're going to be ending up at? A school A, where they're quality-driven and they reward staff, or a school B?
Well, it does come down to talking to people who work there. I mean, we both know that there are schools that are very profit-driven, that are owners who do look to cut corners. The easiest way to drive profits up is to cut costs on staffing, which is your major cost running a school. So yes, not sort of penny pinching on benefits or salaries or allowances, I think is a sort of classic way of doing it. Now, it's about asking the right questions, doing research so you know what the right questions to ask at interview are, and also to actually ask people who are in the job. It's really important to make contact with people working in the school so they can give you a really honest answer.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. I mean, in a teacher recruitment crisis, when maybe schools are scrambling to recruit staff, I think it's important to remember the idea that the streets of persuasion are paved with gold, and that can apply to schools who are desperate to recruit teachers into their school. And be very careful about what you are told. And like Mark, you're suggesting there, I think really scrutinize what you read, what you're being told, seek multiple perspectives on a school, not what it was like maybe 10 years ago, or not just what it says in the marketing material, or not what the interview just, really be, do your due diligence, because the number of people I've spoken to in the last few years who seem so unhappy with the school they're currently at, you want to avoid that sort of situation where what you expected is completely different to what you experience. Okay, so I think the final question then, we've had a suggestion, again, one of the LinkedIn comments, that maybe one way, if you're running a recruitment process or if you're responsible for recruitment in your school, if you want to review your application process as a school and how it appears to prospective applicants, why not sort of run like a sort of secret shopper type activity, and get somebody to apply to your school and then get some feedback on the process they've gone through. Do you think that's a helpful suggestion, Mark?
I think it's a great process. I think it's a great way of doing things. And I think the more information you can get as an employer, as a school, on how your process is and how good your onboarding processes are and how easy you make it is really important. And obviously, you can ask the people who successfully come through that process, i.e. the people you end up employing. But it's also really important to ask people who don't, and particularly people who turn down the job or step away from the process. Why did they do that? And then that way you can improve your processes. And this is really important. We've talked a lot on this series around the global recruitment crisis, and getting your processes right is really important.
Okay, so actively seeking feedback from not only successful candidates, but unsuccessful candidates as part of the feedback process, maybe towards the end or at the end of the process, can be really, really good organizational learning. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up there for today. You've been listening to episode 4 of the School Management Plus Talking Recruitment series. And as always, we are really eager to hear more feedback, more engagement, more suggestions, and more comments. Please put those in the LinkedIn comments below. And we look forward to talking with you on episode 5 coming soon. Take care.